Hey everybody, Bungsy here with another ultralight review on ultralight backpacking. Besides needing to eat, I find a good meal with good company and a well-earned view to be a central part of each of my hikes. I hope you agree and are therefore enjoying my little collection of shorts on cooking in the wilderness. Let me know, either way, we can do more or less on cooking and food in the future. Okay, so this is already the sixth in my cooking series, so be sure to circle back if you've missed any. In the last couple of shorts, we covered my favorite stove setups. One built around Esbit fuel cubes, and the other built being a more traditional canister stove setup. Today, we're talking about pots, and in particular, my favorite three-season pot. In the follow-up video to this, I'll share with you my cold weather pot, which has some unique features that are particularly handy in cold weather. Let's jump in. So, if you're keeping up, you saw me sing the praises of the Caldera cone setup by Trail Designs. Given my love affair with Caldera cones, I therefore gravitate to pots that work with one of their cones. Now, of course, you can also use these pots with traditional canister stoves, so you're covered either way with one of these pots. You also heard about my love affair with my pot cozy. Whoops, there goes a pot. If a pot doesn't fit into my pot cozy, then it isn't the right pot for me. So the pot we're talking about today fits into my pot cozy, and it has a matching Caldera setup that was designed for it and stores inside of it, as you can see here. And of course, the canister stove I recommended in my most recent video fits inside this pot as well, along with the fuel canister, which again will fit inside here, which all then fits inside the pot cozy, plus odds and ends like a rag and a lighter. So whether you're team Esbit or team fuel canister, you're good to go with this pot. All right, so my three-season pot of choice is the TI Ultralight Deep Pot S by a Japanese manufacturer by the name of Evernew. That's a product name only a mother could love. I'm guessing the name sounds better in Japanese. They are not the first or only company to specialize in titanium. However, they are lighter than others because they use a thinner gauge of titanium in their products than most everyone else. Besides saving you a little more weight, I also find that this thinner gauge leads to the pots cooling down quicker, which is nice because they are therefore easier to handle and more quickly ready to be cleaned and put away. In general, I look for a pot that has enough capacity for one rehydrated meal, the water for one rehydrated meal, plus a hot drink. Now, it's okay though if you have to top off the pot a little to have enough for a full cup of coffee or tea. Adding a half a pot's worth of cold water to a half a pot of already boiling water will still result in a hot cup of coffee or tea. Fully boiling water is overrated when it comes to drinks, in my opinion. This pot at 0.6 liters hits that sweet spot in size, in my opinion. Besides its size and weight and compatibility with Caldera cone setups and the cozies, I also like the fact that this pot has handles and it comes with a lid lifter that isn't hot to the touch. Between the handles and the lifter, you don't have to worry about getting burned. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the thinner than most titanium gauge used by Evernew cools down quicker, which means you don't have to worry about burning your lips either, which means you don't have to carry one of those silly silicone lip protectors that some folks carry around to drink from their mugs. I say this all the time, but the less stuff you have to keep track of, the better, regardless of weight. It is worth noting that this mug comes with some kind of silicone sheath over the handles. It's the same as this material. Now, as you can see, it's missing from mine. I found that it burned over time. Plus, they slide around quite a lot. I don't know why. So I just cut them off and haven't missed them at all. Something else you don't have to worry about. And I suppose it saves you some tiny amount of weight, though I haven't weighed it, the difference. So there it is, my favorite pot. Use it with a canister stove setup or a Caldera cone setup. either one of which fits nicely inside of it, including the fuel can itself, and all that then fits nicely inside a Gossamer Gear Cozy. Now, time for a curveball. Evernew makes the same pot in a wider, shallower configuration, which went flying. Here it is. It's called the TI Ultralight Pot Number 1. These two pots have the same capacity at 600 mLs and weigh just about the same. On my scale, the taller, skinnier pot weighs 2.99 ounces, and the wider, shallower pot, 3.03 ounces. Again, on my scale. However, when you take into account the cone setup, the weight difference is relatively significant. The Trail Designs cone setup for the taller, skinnier pot weighs 2.57 ounces, while the cone setup for the wider, shallower pot weighs 1.41 ounces. So when you combine the pot weight and the cone setup weight, the wider, shallower system is 1.12 ounces lighter. Here's another consideration. Ultralight nerd science has shown that wider pots are more efficient than narrower pots. I recall reading somewhere that it is about 20% more efficient. So you need less fuel to heat up this pot than you need to heat up this pot. And here's one more consideration that seemingly tips the scale in favor of the wider, shallower system, which I didn't recommend. The cone for this guy is one piece, while the cone for the taller, skinnier pot is two pieces. While it's hardly difficult or time-consuming, obviously the one-piece cone setup sets up quicker and easier than a two-part cone setup. You might say that's meaningless, but if it's late, raining, cold, dark, and you're tired, you might think again. So, given all this, why in the world am I recommending the taller, skinnier pot over the wider, shallower pot? It makes no sense. The wider, shallower setup is lighter and more efficient, and it sets up quicker and easier. It also cleans easier because it's easier to get your hands in this and this. Well, here's your answer. The wider, shallower pot cannot fit a canister inside of it. The lid won't even come close to closing, and even if you kept the lid separate, it just stacked on top, then it won't fit inside the Cozy. And as we have talked about, it's very common to encounter burn bans at times, which force you to use a canister stove. Let me bottom line it. If you can afford two pots, then buy both. But you don't need cone setups for both, just with the wider, shallower pot. Use this wide, shallower pot with a Trail Design cone setup and Esbits all the time, except when burn bans are encountered, in which case use the standalone, taller, skinnier pot with your gas stove and canister, which will, again, all fit inside of it, nice and neat. If you can't afford both pots and you have a small pack where every inch counts, then again, I recommend going with the taller, skinnier pot instead of the matching Trail Designs cone setup, or with the matching cone setup, that I recommended earlier. With this setup, when you encounter a burn ban, you can switch out the cone for your stove and canister, which again will fit inside this guy no problem. I hope I didn't confuse you by going down this rat hole. I just knew someone was going to ask about this guy. As great as Trail Designs is, they have a dizzying array of options, so I wanted to help you think it through. Again, I have links down below for you in case you want to pick any of this up. Now, in my next cooking short, we'll take a closer look at another pretty unique pot that I think lends itself well to winter camp backpacking. In the meantime, please help me grow the show by hitting like and clicking on the BUNGZY logo floating on your screen. Forget which side, if you haven't subscribed already. It helps me a ton. Thanks, and I'll catch you in my next ultralight review on ultralight backpacking. See ya.